Manchester City signed Omar Marmoush from Eintracht Frankfurt at the beginning of last year, and he already seems to be on his way out this summer. When the club spent €75 million to bring him over to England, everyone thought that he would be there for a long time. The significant investment felt like a huge statement. But a year and a half later, it seems like the club is ready to move on from him completely. The question now is why? That is what we are going to be answering in this video today. This is why Man City are already getting rid of Omar Marmoush. First of all, Marmush was a desperate signing, and let's face it, desperate signings hardly ever end well, so we can't be too surprised about what we're seeing right now. Man City were having their worst ever campaign under Pep Guardiola in the 2024-25 season, and that forced the club to frantically head into the winter transfer window in search of a solution to their problems and hoping to salvage their season. They signed Abdulkadir Kusanov, Jumabah, Nico Gonzalez, Vitor Reis, and Marmush himself. Of all these guys, there's only one you can call a hit right now, Kusanov, and that's because of the promise he showed towards the end of last season, because even for him, the beginning was very rough. Nico has been average at best, and the rest have just not been it. This is what you get when you desperately go into the market with a lot of money in your hands. You'd end up purchasing stuff you don't need, and that's the perfect way to describe Marmush for Man City. They simply never needed him. They already had Erling Haaland, a guy who barely sits on the bench and hardly ever comes off the pitch. Haaland is a goal machine who is hardly ever injured, and because of that, it's hard to leave him out even when he's not playing so well. One moment from him can turn things around in a second. So spending €75 million on a player you wanted to come and play backup to him was never a wise choice. Everyone and their dog knew that Marmush would spend most of his time on the bench, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And even worse still, they went and spent that big on a guy who had not even had a good full season at a top league. He was just halfway into his breakout season at Frankfurt when City went for him with that much money. None of it really made sense, and these are just the consequences of those actions. But these are not even the only reasons the club is moving on from the Egyptian already. We'll talk about the other reasons in a second, but if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, now is a good time to go do that so you never miss out on our amazing content. Done? Okay, back to the video. Now, even though Marmush was a desperate buy which City didn't need, after he joined the club he was given opportunities to wow everyone, but he was simply inconsistent. He failed to score in any of his first 4 games for the club, then dropped a hat-trick against Newcastle. He then went another 3 games without scoring, before putting up back-to-back scoring games against Brighton and Leicester. This was the story of his first half season at the club, and of course it did not help his reputation at all that he went and missed the penalty against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup final, which cost the club a trophy that would have completely saved their disastrous season. And somehow, his first full season managed to be even much worse. He failed to score or assist even once in the Champions League, despite featuring in 8 games and starting 2. He featured in 21 Premier League games and scored just 3 times. It felt like he only came alive whenever it was a game against Newcastle. In just a year and a half in England, he has scored 7 goals against Newcastle. But against any other opponent, you just don't know which version of Marmush you're going to get. It became so difficult to depend on a player like this, especially with the team having too many quality options in attack. On top of all that, it has also been particularly difficult to find a place for him in the team because he is one of those players without a defined role. He is not an out-and-out striker, he is not a winger, he is not a wing-back, and he is not a midfielder. The best way to describe him is a second striker, and that is such a very limited role, especially in modern football. If you have a player who can only operate as a second striker and not even as a 10, the probability that he's going to turn out to be a liability for the team is quite high. When Pep put Haaland on the bench and played Marmush as the 9, it was obvious that there was something missing. Crosses could not be put into the box because Marmush was hardly ever there. When he tried to play him on the flanks, it did not work either because he would end up drifting inside, leaving the wing empty. He also tried him as a 10, but he simply did not have the technique to excel in that position. Profiling him correctly was just too difficult, and his inability to adapt made it 10 times harder to consistently include him in the team. We also saw this at the World Cup. Eventually, Egypt had to drop him to the bench because the coach just could not get the best out of this very limited player. For Pep to play Marmush in his most preferred position, he would have had to sacrifice a midfielder, which was definitely not advisable, especially against tough opponents. And to make matters worse, Marmush wasn't even delivering the numbers that would make anyone want to make compromises. Football fans, this is the deal you don't want to miss. Whether you're hunting for an iconic World Cup jersey or the colours of your favourite club, Goal90 Shop has the perfect pick for you. And right now, everything is a flat 15% off, with free shipping anywhere in the world. So don't wait. Hit the link in the description, head over to Goal90 Shop and grab your favourite jersey today. Compare him with Semenyo, for example. The Ghana international is not a right winger, for sure, but because he was delivering the goals and assists from the jump, Pep moved things around for him. He changed his formation for a few games, allowing Semenyo to play like a second striker alongside Haaland. Maybe Pep could have done that for Marmush, but he just did not show enough quality to force his hand. And speaking of Semenyo, seeing him and Cherki come in and hit the ground running the way they did just pushed Marmush further down the pecking order. They have attackers who can cover the wings and other attacking positions really well, and in fact, Semenyo can even play as a backup for Haaland up top if need be, so Marmush is now surplus to requirements, which is why they feel comfortable moving on from him. And age is not exactly on his side, you know. Marmush is 27 years old right now. If things are not working so well when he's in his prime years, there's little hope that they'll get any better in the future. So the best solution is just to cut your losses and move on. But now, here's one huge reason not many people are paying attention to, but we're sure is a huge factor: his wages. Marmush is one of the top 3 earners at the club. He costs the club close to £20 million every year, which is more than what they pay to the likes of Foden, Ruben Dias and Donnarumma. The club simply cannot be paying that much to a player who is redundant, especially not one who still has 3 more years left on his contract, so it makes sense that they are desperately trying to offload him right now. They might not get back the transfer fee they paid, but when you consider how much wages will be off their books after his departure, you'll see that this will still be a great economic decision for them. Honestly, it is very difficult to make an argument for why Man City should keep Marmush. Everything just seems to be pointing towards the exit door for the Egyptian. But it's not all gloom and doom for him. It's looking like he's going to remain in the Premier League, with Spurs showing so much interest in him. At least he can get a chance to dunk on Man City and try to show them that they were wrong to have let him go. But do you think that will happen? How do you think Marmush will perform at Spurs? Were Man City right to have gotten rid of him? What other reasons do you think influenced the club's decision to move on from him? Get in the comments and talk to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.